Thank you so much for having me. What a beautiful part of the world you live in. Oh my gosh. I was in Chicago at this giant center that's part of an organization called Universal Foundation for Better Living. They're having their big anniversary party. So there's 1,000 people in the audience. And this is way more cool. I mean, this is beautiful here. It's not a giant city where it takes an hour to get anywhere. This is just so beautiful. You truly are in a glorious part of the world. Thank you for having me. Before we get started, could I just see, with a show of hands, how many of you would like to have perfect health, where every cell in your body is filled with healthy, pain-free light? Would anybody like to have harmonious relationships with family, friends, co-workers, your community, and our world? Okay? Okay, all right. Would anybody like to have more money and the freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want? Excellent, I'm in the right place. So I'm so happy. You know, in 1981, God, I guess that was, 37 years ago? My mother, who was a devout Catholic, who had converted from Seventh-day Adventist, gave her 10th child, me, a metaphysical book, my very first metaphysical book called The Game of Life and How to Play It, published in 1925. A woman named Florence Scovel Shinn. Has anybody read that? Well, I went off to college with that book in hand, and I thought I had a secret formula. All I had to do was use my words, thoughts, and emotions to proclaim what I wanted. And it appeared. Oh my God, I had a miracle-making formula. I was able to graduate with honors in 3 years while growing a business with 250 employees. It's a miracle. This stuff works. Well, as I matured in my understanding, you grow older and wiser and you have more experiences, I was still able to prove these principles. And I moved through life starting and growing different businesses and relying on spirit and taking all of these things that I was learning and boiling them down into a really efficient process. So I found myself at Center for Spiritual Living in Seattle. It didn't really matter to me where I went to church because I still practiced these New Thought principles. So I found myself there because my sister, Reverend Sharon Ramey, decided to be a reverend. And I just pretty much followed wherever she went, and it didn't matter to me. And I find myself at Center for Spiritual Living in Seattle and think, oh my gosh, there's a church that believes this. How cool is that? And after I started attending there, and I'm a huge believer that if you want to increase prosperity, become a tither. And that's a whole nother talk. But I was a tither. I do it without even thinking. It's like brushing my teeth. And I was tithing, and the spiritual leadership came up to me and said, May, what are you doing to be so successful? I thought it was a trick question. And I said, well, I'm doing what you teach. Isn't that right? And they said, no, we just don't have people that tithe at the level that you do very often, and we're curious. What are you doing? What's your spiritual practice? And I said, oh, you want to know what my daily practice is? So I described what I do on a daily basis. You see, I'm a self-proclaimed efficiency expert. All that means is that I hate to waste time. I just hate it. And so I've taken all these spiritual principles and boiled them down into a very efficient daily practice. It takes about 25, 30 minutes in the morning, and then it's just fun all day long. And so I described this to them, and they said, well, would you be willing to teach a workshop on it? And I did. And I teach a workshop, and I give everybody this 28-page workbook, and it's really fun and interactive, and we're going to have one later this afternoon. But it's very fun and interactive, and about the 500th person who had gone through the workshop, having great success, came up to me and said, May, would you please write a book? Because in your workshops, you describe all these application stories. I'm a really big believer in describing how to use these theories and these principles. And so I tell lots and lots of stories, not only my own, but other people who have proved these wonderful principles work, like Reverend Rafe. I mean, he was able to manifest all the money required to complete ministerial school. How cool is that? Right? Well, that's the way our life is supposed to be. So I explained this. I had explained this in all my workshops, all these great stories. And finally I decided, okay, I will write the book to include the stories from the workshops. So I'm happy to say that I did write The Path to Wealth. It came out in 2015, and it was kind of strange because it became a bestseller, but it became a bestseller in personal finance. It's not a personal finance book. And isn't that wonderful how Spirit uses us to get into an area where Spirit wants to make a difference? Now, in personal finance, you've got Tony Robbins, you've got Freakonomics, you've got Dave Ramsey, you've got all these really big, heavy hitter personal finance people. And then comes along a spiritual book. God works in mysterious ways. Spirit has a plan for all of us. So I'm really happy that the book came out. I know that the reason I've been so successful is because I have made a choice to partner with Spirit in the way that I'm going to describe today. Now, in addition to partnering with Spirit, I decided that I wanted to help people understand this a little bit easier. So the title of my talk today is Partnering with Your Chief Spiritual Officer for Success and Freedom. You're probably wondering, what in the world is a Chief Spiritual Officer? Well, for me, it's the characteristic of Spirit that is the ultimate advisor. It gives me advice. You see, as a CEO of companies, I surround myself with people whose advice I value. I have a chief financial officer that just helps us understand how our finances are used in our company to grow our company. I have a chief information officer that describes the technology that our company needs and that our products need to offer to our customers. A chief marketing officer, a chief operating officer, and I decided, since all of these people in my C-suite are subject matter experts and can advise me, God knows more than they do, Spirit knows more than they do, and I really wanted to bring Spirit into my business. So I gave it a title. I call it the Chief Spiritual Officer, or CSO for short. And I did something different. I decided to place the CSO at the top of my organizational chart, so that I, as the CEO, report to it. Can you imagine what my employees said? Is it a man? Is it a woman? Do we get to meet them? And I said, look, here's the deal. The CSO is a symbol. It's a symbol of why we're going to be a miracle-making company. We are going to compete with the 3 Fortune 20 companies that we are competing with and all these other companies. And we are going to become market share leader in new acquisition of business. And you need to have a reason why this is going to happen. It's because the CSO. But here's what I need you to do. I need you, anytime there's a problem, anytime that you're stuck on trying to find a solution, I need you to describe what your life would be like after that problem is gone, after that solution is found, how you're serving your customers in wonderful ways, how our company is thriving and prospering, and how we're growing by leaps and bounds. Can you do that for me? And then, when you have these strong thoughts, gut instincts, or ideas to take action, and you do it, I want you to email me or text me or call me. Let me know how that's going. Does that sound like metaphysical principles? Does that sound like using your words, thoughts, and emotions to declare that something is so? Yeah, I was teaching spiritual principles without them even knowing it. And consequently, we were, in fact, market share leader in what we were doing. We launched to a place that most other companies had no concept of being able to achieve. And I know it's because of our partnership with the CSO. I know that it's because of using these spiritual principles. But in 1994, the CSO actually saved my life. It can be used for business, it can be used for personal goals as well. I had this strong flash or picture of my sister's face in my mind's eye. Anybody ever have that happen? You just have this really strong thought that pops into your head. So I had this picture of my sister's face, and I knew that meant I needed to contact her. So after I finished with my business appointment, her office was pretty close to where I was, so I just stopped by. She was so happy to see me. She had a computer problem that I could fix for free. And as I was sitting at her desk, she noticed this little tiny dot, teeny tiny dot, on the outside of my right leg. And I was raised in Hawaii, and I'm fair. I have a lot of freckles, lots and lots of freckles. And when she asked about it, I said it was a freckle. I mean, it's teeny tiny little dot. I've had it forever. She said she didn't feel that it was a freckle. And she asked that I go see her dermatologist and have it looked at. Well, the very first thing that I'm thinking of is I'm busy. I got appointment after appointment after appointment. I'm busy, busy, busy. There's no way I can take the time to do this. And I've always had that dot. I mean, it hasn't grown. It can't be anything to be concerned about. And I was just about to voice that. And my gut hurt. Anybody ever have their gut hurt? Yeah. And again, I've been practicing this a while, so I know that was Spirit trying to get my attention. So I thought, well, you know what, I'll just make an appointment. It's probably a good idea to have a dermatologist relationship anyway, right? So I made the appointment, and the doctor said, May, it's nothing. It's too small. It can't possibly be anything. Just go home. Don't worry. I was just about to heed his advice, and my gut hurt again. Now here's the interesting thing. My father was a surgeon. If you met my father, you would know that he put himself on the same level as God. Doctors are always right. He repeated over and over and over to his 10 children that doctors were trained, doctors knew more than you, you should always take their advice. And here's this strong belief that I have. And my gut's hurting. Well, I decided to go with God on that one instead of my dad. And I said, Doctor, I do not mean to be disrespectful. I really don't. But you need to cut that off and have it diagnosed. I came back a week later to a diagnosis of cancer. I had malignant melanoma, Clark's level 3. The CSO helped me to get treatment for that. I just had to have simple surgery, and I've been cancer-free ever since. I know that Spirit can be our partner. I know that we can declare that something is so using Spirit's power. How many of you know someone, or maybe you yourself, have declared the power of healing and seen what you think is, a seeming miracle for healing? How many of you know someone that has experienced that, or maybe you yourself? See, we have that program down. I can know for you that you are whole and complete, in perfect health. Every cell in your body is operating in the perfection of God's design. You all can know that for her, right? We've got that one down. But why don't we use the same power, that same confidence for our finances, our relationships, our use of skills and talents in remarkable and fun ways, our recreation? Lots of successful people do. Bill Gates, does anybody know that name? He said often you have to rely on intuition, the spiritual intuition that shows up. And Steve Jobs from Apple, he said that you actually had to have courage. Courage to follow your heart and intuition, like the courage it takes to go up against an old belief that you've lived with your entire life. And Oprah Winfrey is clearly one of the most influential women of our time, and she said that she's listened to that still small voice of intuition her whole life. And the only time that she's made mistakes, and she didn't listen. So Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Steven Spielberg, Albert Einstein, if they all believe that intuition, this spiritual intuition, this guidance, can be helpful and be used as a tool for success, why aren't we all doing it? Well, I think partly it's because most people in our society are not taught how to do this. And thank God there are centers like this one that teach these principles. But in most of society, when we have a question about anything, what do? We Google it, right? Yeah. We Google it and we gather all this information and we talk to our friends and our family about it. We talk to subject matter experts. We research, we analyze, we evaluate. And then we think of every possible step that we could take, right? No, we go one step further. We think of every possible outcome that could come from every possible step that we take, right? And if we don't like any of the possible outcomes, what do? Nothing, right? We do nothing. Well, you're not allowed to do nothing anymore. Okay? You're not allowed to do nothing anymore. You know, this is not a new concept. Albert Einstein actually wrote about this years and years ago. He said that we have this intuitive mind that's a sacred gift. And we have this rational mind that's a faithful servant. It'll do whatever we tell it to do. But somehow in our society, we have decided to honor this rational mind, this servant, and we've forgotten the gift. So what I'm here to do today is just to help you to remember what you already know, which is that this wonderful spiritual intuition is a gift, and we can receive and use that gift to create the lives that we love. You with me on that? Now, being the self-proclaimed efficiency expert that I am, I've actually given you some notes, and I'm going to share 3 points with you. If you don't have one of these, you can raise your hand and one will be brought to you. But I just want to share with you 3 points today. The first is to recognize that your spiritual intuition has a source. All right? And it wants to help you to create the life that you love, to accomplish your goals, to achieve whatever you decide is success. And it also wants to keep you safe. But it stands to reason that you actually need to have some goals, right? And they need to be worded in such a way that will enable not only your intuition to show up, but why not enable your subconscious to jump in and help you too? And let me illustrate this. How many of you have ever said, wait, let me rephrase that. How many of you have ever heard somebody else say, I want to lose 10 pounds? Or I want to get out of debt? Okay? Well, think about that goal for a second. If the goal is to be wanting to lose 10 pounds, or the goal is to be wanting to get out of debt, haven't you already achieved it? Aren't you already wanting? Right? So why would spiritual intuition and your subconscious have to help you with that? So what you need to do is reword your goals and describe them with gratitude as though they're already complete. So you might say, I'm so grateful that I'm financially free with a minimum or more of X number of dollars to use and enjoy, to bless others with, and to invest and increase. I love my financially free life. Or I'm so grateful that I'm physically fit, trim, toned, energetic, and a healthy, pain-free body that's easily able to move through life. And I'm eternally youthful and increasingly more beautiful. That's my goal. You see the difference? See the difference? All right. So wording your goals as though they're already complete with gratitude. Very important to enable spiritual intuition and your subconscious to show up and help you. The second point is that you need to partner with spirit. And in this partnership, you're going to have different roles and responsibilities that you each follow. Now let me point out here that I am not condoning separation. We are all part of one. We are part of the one. But don't we have different names for different characteristics of spirit? Don't we call it love, truth, power, divine intelligence, right? So I want you to think of a name that describes the ultimate advisor characteristic of spirit. I gave that characteristic a title, and I call it the CSO, but whatever you choose to call that is just fine. Now, in this partnership, you're going to have different roles and responsibilities that you'll follow. How many of you have ever worked for a living? Okay, so you had a job or have a job because you're extremely good at what you do. Would you ever go to a different part of the company where somebody's doing something that you have no knowledge of how to do and start trying to do their job for them? Would you? No. So stop trying to do God's job. Your job is figure out what it is that you want. Describe it with gratitude as though it's already complete. God's job, Spirit's job, the CSO's job is to create the path for you to get there and to give you one step to take at a time. Like seeing that flash of a picture of my sister's face in my mind's eye that led me to have great health, right? You get one step to take. I've already tried to bargain to get all the steps at once. Unfortunately, that's not how Spirit works. You get one. And you can either choose to take the step, like stop by my sister's office, or you can ask for another lead. Lead is just another confirming message or some sort of intuitive insight that confirms that this is the direction you're supposed to take. So how do we ask for a lead? I want you all to try this right now. Look straight out, tilt your head slightly up, and say, Spirit, I need another lead.
Spirit, I need another lead.
I have been racking my brain for years trying to figure out how to make this more complicated for you. Because if it's more complicated, you actually might do it. But it's really that simple. If you get a gut instinct, a strong thought to go somewhere, do something, contact someone, somebody gives you a message and it resonates in your heart, you know what that all feels like. If you get that lead, you either take the step, or if you're unsure, you're filled with doubt, maybe a little fearful, it just isn't feeling right, just ask for another lead. You will get one. Let me demonstrate this. I had a goal in one of my startups was to have a minimum or more of $400,000 in increased revenue. And this was to grow our company and to serve our customers better and things like that. So I'm describing it as though it's done with gratitude. And I travel about 150 to 200,000 miles a year when I'm growing a big business, all right? So I found myself in Cleveland, and I have a routine. I get off the plane, I get my bags, I get my rental car, I go to the hotel, drop everything off, and then I get back in my rental car to go to the closest grocery store and pick up protein shakes and water and things that I need for my stay. So I'm in Cleveland. I get back into the car at the hotel. It's 9 o'clock at night, and I know, I've been to Cleveland lots of times, I know there's a grocery store 5 minutes away. And I have a strong thought about a grocery store that's 15 minutes away. Oh, and my rational mind jumps right on that. May. What are you thinking? It's 9 o'clock at night. You shouldn't be driving across town at 9 o'clock at night in Cleveland. And I want to remind you, young lady, that your appointment is at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's 5 o'clock in the morning, Seattle time. You're going to be way too tired if you traipse across city to a different grocery store when you know a perfectly good one is just 5 minutes away. Just go get what you need and get a good night's sleep. How many of you can identify with that? Yeah, if our rational mind doesn't understand an outcome, it's going to try and talk us out of it. So you figured what I did was the same thing I'm asking you to do. I figuratively stomped my foot and said, hey, CSO, if that's from you, I need another lead. This gives that intuitive mind that Albert Einstein referred to a chance to chime in, and mine did. Well, it's true that it's 9 o'clock at night, May, but it's only 6 o'clock in the evening in Seattle. It's too early for you to go to sleep anyway. And who knows, maybe everything you want will be on sale. Just make the drive. So I did it. As I'm walking into the grocery store, I recognized this man that was walking out. I met him 6 months before at a trade show. He represented a giant new customer. And he wasn't returning any of my phone calls or emails for an appointment. And here we are, face to face. We have a pleasant conversation, and before the end, he invites me to come make a presentation to his group while I'm in town. That led to another presentation and another presentation and a contract worth over $400,000 in the time frame that I was asking for. Does that sound like Red Sea's parting? Food falling from heaven? Water coming out of rocks? Yeah. That's the way we're supposed to live. That's the way we're supposed to live. And for those of you that went to the same business school that I did, be honest with yourself. You were taught, create a goal and figure out every little step that it takes to get to that goal, right? How many of you, in all honesty, would say first step, drive across town at 9 o'clock in Cleveland? God's ways are ingenious. Spirit's ways are beyond our rational mind. But this is the way we're supposed to live. We're supposed to use that gift. The third and final point is that you need to cultivate a relationship. You need to meet daily with Spirit in order to build that relationship of trust. All right? How many of you have ever heard the phone ring and you know who it was? Okay? You probably have a relationship with that person, right? It's a wonderful example of how we're all connected. Well, Spirit's going to give you advice in ways that are unique to you. And the way that you cultivate that relationship is to meet daily in a goal planning meeting with your spiritual partner. All right? To build that level of trust. And I don't have time to go over each of those 7 steps with you right now, but I hope that you'll come because we're going to practice these in the workshop this afternoon at 1 o'clock. Everybody gets a 28-page workbook. It's really interactive and it's a lot of fun. All right? And I'm not the only one that believes that it's important to rely on this spiritual partner. All right? Even Ernest Holmes, our founder, believes that. And so what I'd like to do in closing is to have us read together this closing prayer from Ernest Holmes that's on your sheet. So let's read this together. I know that I am in partnership with the Infinite. I identify myself with this partnership, knowing that it always leads to success. I accept that the action of infinite intelligence is back of everything. It is always manifesting itself, and it now does so through the thought pattern of success I am establishing for myself. Conditions and situations about me now start to correspond to my new ideas about them. The invisible presence and power indwelling and surrounding me, which is forever making manifest my thought, now creates for me the success with which I have identified my thought. May you be blessed. May you be prospered. May you be healthy. May you be happy. And as Ernest Holmes and the Fillmore's teacher, Emma Curtis Hopkins, said, there is a good for you and you ought to have it. And I would add that you should have it now. Thank you so much.